2002 was an unusual vintage. I would say strange, After 6 years in a row when we had very warm and dry vintages, and somehow work was easy for the vintners, all of a sudden we had the opposite. We had a rainy, humid vintage. And what we thought had become true thanks to a climate change, all of a sudden was not true anymore. At the beginning of the year, winter and early spring, the temperature was rather low, and then it became warmer but also rainy. And also, the beginning of the summer was very rainy, which created mold to begin with. But the crop looked big. And then, what happened unexpectedly in early September, just a few weeks before the grape harvest, we had a huge hailstorm. So the vintners had to make very drastic decisions about selecting the grapes to avoid the mold, to avoid the grapes that had been damaged by the hail. Those who did a good job had a reduced crop of about 30, even 40% less. But they also had good quality and sometimes even excellent quality. In that year, 2002, we had a very unique opportunity of vinifying an historic vineyard that had belonged in the 19th century to the Count Camillo Benso di Cavour in Grinzane Cavour. We made it on behalf of the International Literary Prize Grinzane Cavour with a special bottle and a special label that shows books, because this bottle was donated to the winners of the Literary Prize Grinzane Cavour. Some of them were very famous writers like Vole Soinka, like Luis Sepulveda, Mario Vargas Llosa, even Nobel winner writers. They were very happy to receive bottles of Barolo besides their literary prize. I have kept some of those bottles in my private library, wine library in this case, and 20 years later, it's about time to taste it. Opening this bottle is now very emotional for me because it brings back the memories of making this wine, preparing it carefully, and then sharing it with those famous writers. Now, like I said, this is almost 20 years later. Let's see what happened to the wine. First, from the color, which is still a dark garnet in the middle. It has become lighter in the outside. It shows a sort of an amber-like hue, but it's still bright and no sediment. There are different levels of bouquet. At first, some leather and certainly dried fruit like dried figs and dates, raisins. But then soon after that, we have a strong smell of caramel, of burnt sugar, and then more spice. There's definitely also the spicy level, which comes through from behind. So there's quite a surprising complexity in this bouquet, and we can smell it again and again. In fact, at a second sniff, there's also something more. There's like tobacco leaves that have been crumbled, and there's bitter chocolate. So there's always like this game of moving. The bouquet moves from dried fruit to spicy elements to dehydrated fruit and vegetal aromas. It kept rather well for a very ripe Barolo. We expect oxidation, which is not there. We expect that tannins have given in, and instead the tannins are still supporting the structure. There's fairly good acidity. It was, like I said, a cool vintage, so it has kept a certain freshness. Although it's fully ripe, I don't think this wine can ripen anymore, but certainly it has kept the balance. Surprisingly, very balanced, very smooth. It's medium bodied, not very, very powerful, 14% alcohol, but this balance, all the pieces come together like a mosaic when it's finished. So very drinkable right now. Right now, it's time to enjoy it, time to drink it. The big problem with vintage 2002 was actually the wine press. After 6 years of wonderful vintages, the producers have been bragging about these fantastic vintages. Then all of a sudden, we had to admit that 2002 was a difficult vintage. And the press immediately decided it was a negative vintage. It was a no vintage. So it became even harder for us, for the producers, to try to show that we could actually come up with excellence in 2002. Like the wine press was not ready to listen to that. And it takes time. It takes time to make a good Barolo, and sometimes it takes time to convince the press that they should revise a little bit their opinion, when, in particular, when it's a prejudice. Now it's been almost 20 years, and I think it has time to revise that opinion and to say that 2002 was an unusual vintage, was difficult, was humid, was rainy, was a reduced crop, but in some cases there were excellent Barolos. This one is unique, is memorable. It reminds us of a very special event, the literary prize Grinsane Cavour, which still exists. I don't think it gives the writers wine anymore. I don't know if it does, but certainly in those days for us it was our pride to bottle Barolo for the writers and to give it to them as the best gift from the Barolo appellation from Langhe, from Piemonte.